Tim Kono's death has been ruled a homicide, and apparently one of you jerk-offs did it.
I can't stop thinking about this.
Neither can I.
We should do our own true crime podcast.
We're gonna go down there and look around for clues.
Do you want to come?
Do I want to break into a dead guy's apartment and go through all his shit? Sounds like an afternoon.
Oh, you had me at jerk-offs!
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood. What was that we just saw, Bryce?
So that was a trailer for the upcoming Hulu series, Only Murders in the Building. It stars Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez as they investigate a murder that took place in their apartment building and record a true crime podcast as they do this. That's coming to Hulu August 31st.
Full disclosure, I mean, I think it's fair to say that
we make podcasts, so we are.
I am a fan of Martin Short. I am a fan of Steve Martin. I am a fan of Selena Gomez. I'm a fan of all those things.
I think this was targeted towards us.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Us.
Like, I thought I would like it. What I did not expect is to watch the trailer and love it because
I even like
all
Selena
of those
Gomez.
things and. I don't want to say skewering, but skewering cereal at the same time is chef's kiss. Mwah.
So good. So good.
That's the end of August.
So to balance us out, we brought another podcaster on the show, Chris Mancini from White Cat Entertainment. How's it going, Chris?
Good. Thanks for having me. Sadly, not a true crime podcaster, but I can definitely relate to everything in that trailer.
I mean, it would be great if, like, in the next hour and a half or so, you could go out and commit a true crime, and then we could be a true crime podcast and make more money, I guess.
You know, it's the hour's not up, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're going to murder us with words.
Yes, one of us is the Steve Martin, one of us is the Martin Short. I guess one of us is Selena Gomez.
I'm the body.
Podcast.
Yeah,
you'll know.
I got to say, whenever I see Steve Martin in something, I don't even care what it is. And like, I'm on board.
I know, right?
Stop the trailer. It doesn't matter. Stop. Yeah, take my money. I'm good.
All right. Well, let's get right into it, folks, with our primary target. We got good news and bad news for Disney. The good news for Disney, Jungle Cruise took in $61.8 million worldwide and more than $30 million from Disney Plus for a total of $91.8 million plus. They was above the expectations domestically, a little short internationally, put it 31% ahead of Cruella, though well behind Black Widow, but everybody expected it to be behind Black Widow. And The Verge notes that Black Widow made about 27% of its opening weekend on Disney Plus, while Jungle Cruise at about 33% coming from streaming. Also notable, this was the last movie that Disney had said would come to theaters and streaming on the same day. We'll see what they do now. They might announce more, they might not. That is the good news. Now to the bad news. Scarlett Johansson's attorneys filed a lawsuit Thursday alleging Disney breached her contract when they put Black Widow on streaming the same day as theatrical. So maybe they won't put anything out same day on streaming and theatrical. The suit alleges the move depressed ticket sales, and most of Johansson's compensation was based on theatrical revenue. She gets some from streaming, but not as much. Wall Street Journal sources say Johansson believes Disney's day and date decision may have resulted in $50 million in lost bonuses. Disney said in a statement that Johansson earned $20 million to appear in Black Widow. Disney also said the lawsuit is especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ouch. Knives out, Disney. Friday, CAA, the talent agency that manages Johansson, accused Disney of including her salary in its press statement in, quote, an attempt to weaponize her success as an artist and businesswoman, and added, they have shamelessly and falsely accused Ms. Johansson of being insensitive to the global COVID pandemic in an attempt to make her appear to be someone they and I know she isn't. As Black Widow once said to Captain America, are we still friends?
This is usually the part I jump in with a thought or an opinion, but I'm really interested to hear from everybody else who is not me first. Chris, do you have immediate first impressions on this?
Absolutely. I have about 1,000 of them, and they're all focused on one specific thing. If you're Disney and you're already in a hole, stop digging. My God. I mean, this could have been avoided so easily. They could have figured out a different compensation behind the scenes. Clearly, there was going to be a giant hit, not only to Scarlett Johansson, but to any other actor with a participation deal when movies are going to go simultaneously to streaming and also to theatrical. HBO Max, I'm sure, is having the same exact discussions, but not on Twitter. So that will definitely make it a little easier. It was a weird thing where, for all the good decisions Disney made and all the savvy ones, this was such one that they could have avoided so easily, that they escalated in the wrong direction so quickly. It's really baffling how poorly that they handled this. Even Kevin Feige, who was head of Marvel, said it's like he was like embarrassed and like saddened by how Disney was handling this, because now it's just going to get worse. And it could have been solved not only with Scarlett Johansson, but for all the actors with theatrical compensation deals down the line as things move more to streaming. So it was an opportunity missed.
I mean, look at Warner and what they did, where they put everything on HBO Max and everyone was upset at them, like publicly upset.
Yes.
Somehow they did, I don't know what they did, but they did something that kept themselves from getting sued. I assume they went to everybody and said, let's figure this out. Let's alter the contracts. Let's make you happy, make you whole.
Right.
I assume that Disney, I can't believe Disney wouldn't have tried to do that. What I'm guessing happened is they didn't either try hard enough or Scarlett played hardball. Whoever's fault it was, we don't know. They didn't come to an agreement with Scarlett Johansson. And
right.
when it comes to that, maybe Scarlett's overreaching. Maybe she's playing too much hardball. The answer to that is not to accuse her of ignoring COVID in your press statement.
I know.
You lose
that was
all
like the most
sympathy at that point.
There was the most tone-deaf
disappointing
response
that you
could have
want
done.
everybody to die. Wow, we're so upset about that.
Wow. I guess these millions of dollars that you were due are more important than everyone's lives worldwide, but we're going to keep those millions instead and just accuse you of being insensitive.
Worthy of consideration is the fact that Black Widow as a character, I have a teenage daughter who very vocally is annoyed that Black Widow had not gotten a movie earlier, and the businessman in me understands, like, well, in the Marvel hierarchy, you go, when you don't know that the MCU is going to be a hit, what you do is you go with what you think will be the safest bets that you can make at the time or whatever. But having said that, like, I think it was 6 months ago, we covered one article that talked about how Black Widow was one of the top franchises, one of the most valued brand names in all of cinematic universes. With it being that, and it being, her first solo vehicle after all of these years, and then what did it come in at, Bryce? Yeah, number 10 out of the top entertainment franchises. Ooh, they really shouldn't have tried to cheap out on this.
And what's crazy too? It's like it's her last film. I mean, the character is dead, and this was a prequel. It's like you don't have Scarlett Johansson lined up for 10 more Marvel Universe films. There's 1,000 ways they could have gotten in front of it, and they did not.
Yeah, I mean, and just to throw it out there, it's possible because there are some sources saying that Johansson's people were pushing very hard to not have it go to streaming. They really wanted a theatrical release, which is one of the reasons I think it kept getting delayed. It's possible that any kind of streaming situation wasn't going to make them happy, and Disney knew that and was like, fine, we'll see you in court. I still don't think your press statement releases her pay and accuses her of being callous towards COVID. I don't get that side of it. I guess you're trying to like say, well, here's the punishment for suing us. We told you we'd make you look bad, but it only makes Disney look bad as far as what I can tell.
I'm for sure
personally less bothered than the release of pay than I am the idea that they're making a value judgment about how that's plenty or whatever. Like that's the part that really upsets me. It's like numbers are numbers. Who cares? A bar of gold is worth what a bar of gold is worth. But to act like that should be enough for you, That's the real crime in my book.
Yeah. The pairing. the
If the
marriage of one
movie
to the other.
only made $20 million, you could say, okay, well, $20 million for Scarlett Johansson might be excessive, but that's not what these movies make. And these participation deals are based on very specific projections that, with COVID and with theatrical releases being, diluted, they're never going to hit. So I think one of the lawyers probably should have called HBO Max and say, hey, what are you guys doing about this? And then maybe they would have figured some things out before ridiculous press statements were made.
Can I propose some wild speculation here?
The best kind.
Would it be out of bounds to speculate that she doesn't love the idea, the person doesn't love the idea of suing Disney, because that's a risky look. There's a lot that can go sideways and so on. But I can imagine a lot of reasons a lot of people would pressure her. You've got everybody who's like, hey man, somebody's got to stand up. Like, this is a clear violation of the contract. Somebody's got to stand up for the 90-day window and for theatrical releases. You could be that person. Somebody's got to stand up for strong female leads in these movies and so on. Somebody's got to
stand up for 10% of 20 million is less than 10% of 50 million.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yes. And I would imagine that she's not enjoying any second of any of this.
No.
I certainly wouldn't.
And also the deals are, there's not like a one size fits all deal. Like, it's entirely possible some actors get larger sums and fees up front with smaller participation. Some get smaller fees up front with larger participation, because that goes into your calculation as well. Like, if you have a larger fee up front, you're less worried about the participation when things go to streaming. It's like, well, I really didn't lose that much. So it's clear that a lot of her compensation was predicated on a theatrical release. And I'm sure her and her agents went to Disney and said, hey, can we negotiate this? And it looks like they hit a stone wall. And then that's when things kind of escalated.
Now, the question is, will we see more actors, directors even doing this? If so, or even just the threat of that, will that dissuade companies from pushing the window and shortening the window? I feel like the answer is we probably won't see that many more lawsuits, at least until this has played itself out. I think everybody will want to see how it goes in court. But it will make companies a little more cautious about just throwing it onto streaming, I would guess.
That's the other aspect of this, is even if she doesn't win, whatever winning means, because almost certainly this will be settled out of court or whatever. This was a bite to the hand of Disney. It was like, here she is on her way out from the MCU with her last project, with the least amount the best positioned in a unique time, that it's like, okay, the industry itself is either going to decide that day and date is fine going forward, or they're going to be reminded that actors really like theatrical releases. And here, I mean, there's kind of, or
you have to structure the deals to be favorable to the actors if they go day and date, give them bigger cuts of the streaming.
Correct. And so part of me wonders if her real play isn't just to take a bullet on behalf of the rest of, her acting community. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure there was definitely some support, and even probably, like you were saying, Brian, some pressure probably from the agencies too, like saying, like, look, because that affects their bottom line as well. They, they're commissioning that money that suddenly disappeared. But all contracts also going forward, they're going to have all these considerations in effect with streaming and shortened windows and all of these things. So I think there was an opportunity, like we were saying, to retroactively fit these current contracts, like what the future contracts may look like. But I feel like they were literally just months behind on this, this forward thinking. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean,
because Netflix buys movies that are made with the idea that they could go into theaters all the time. And what they do, from what I hear, is they buy out the back end. They agree on a number that they're like, this is about what you would have made on the back end. We'll just give you that, because there won't be any back end. It's just going on Netflix. That's likely what Warner did, some version of that with HBO Max. And Disney and Scarlett Johansson's people just couldn't agree on what that number would be, I guess.
Yeah,
It's possible, yeah.
Last thing I'll say on this, and Tom, Chris, I know that you guys have swum in shark-filled waters as well. There have definitely been decisions that I made where it wasn't about the money, but it was about like, if this is how you're going to play it, then I need this to be painful for you, so that so you understand this is what happens when you do this kind of thing. And this that's the general read I get. I have, obviously
that explains
outside.
Disney's reaction of like, well, we'll make it painful for you too then.
Although guess which one got which one is made of anti-venom. I'll give you a hint. She's a spider.
That kind of backfired.
I don't think it really worked the way they wanted it to. Well, folks, if you enjoy Cordkillers, we're glad. That's why we make it. We want everybody to get something out of it, enjoy it, have a good time, and learn something. And all we ask is that you support us directly on Patreon. We don't have ads on the show, so if you want to keep it going, we need you to keep it going. Patreon.com/Cordkillers is the place to go to do that.
Heck yeah, dude. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Keep us loud-eyed and independent. What, $1 an episode? That's all we ask. Come on, man.
Come on.
Help us out.
It's nothing. Please. Let's talk about how to watch. Comcast CEO Brian Roberts, in the earnings call for Comcast, which of course owns NBC Universal, said Peacock has signed up 54 million accounts since launching in April 2020. Well, that's pretty good. Just around a year, 54 million, not bad. 20 million of those are active users. Some people, sign up for an account that they don't monthly watch Peacock. 20 million is not bad for your active users. I mean, only a fraction of those are paying though. The ones that aren't paying get monetized as ads, but you don't make as much money off the ads as you do off the direct payments. Anyway, Comcast wouldn't admit what that number is. Peacock will begin its international rollout this year as a free addition on Sky's satellite TV platform in Europe. And after the Sky debut, the company plans to roll it out globally via third-party distributors. Now, one of the things they did say is they wanted to launch Peacock on the back of the Olympics last year. They didn't get to do that. So they're hoping they see a nice, healthy bump in Peacock active users and subscriptions on the back of the Olympics this year. But Brian, what do you make of those numbers?
So part of me wants to kick this to Chris to ask the question. Like, when I first read this story, the first thing that popped in my mind is 50 million. Is that a lot or little? Where does that compare? And I wanted to go check, like it's a contest. And suddenly it hit me. It's like, no, it's not a contest. It's like this is however many people they're reaching. It's an ancillary arm of the NBC corporation and so on. If anything, it actually kind of got me in a headspace where I'm like, are we in a post deciding winners, first, second, third place type thing? Because I mean, that's what we've done for 12 years. But all of a sudden there are so many players, and it's like, you have the audience you have. And look at us, like our numbers are quote unquote nothing compared to NBC or whatever. But like there's only one number we care about, which is our Patreon numbers. And likewise, same thing with Peacock. It's like, is it profitable? Great, we're done. Cool story, bro. Chris, am I doing myself a disservice by keeping my eye off the prize in terms of like rankings or what?
You know what? It's everyone's looking at those rankings. What's interesting is, Peacock and some of these other smaller streaming services have like a kind of like, oh wait, no, don't forget about us mentality to them. Like, instead of actually doing something innovative or interesting with original programming and bundling a lot of things, they're just trying to figure out the streaming space by literally throwing whatever they have in their library on it. And Peacock is a prime example of that. So I don't think Peacock in its current form is going to remain the way it is. It's either going to partner with a larger company. It's going to get absorbed somewhere else. There's going to be like all of a sudden a universal Peacock something / like the way Paramount is doing and rolling in like first it was CBS. Now it's going to be Paramount. Everything's going to get larger because they're not competing with networks anymore. They're competing with Netflix, and they're competing with Disney Plus with these large libraries and original programming. So I feel like some of these places are playing catch up, and I think Peacock is definitely one of them. And one of the things, like when you were reading that, Tom, like every number got smaller as you were as you were reading that list. It's like, here's how many there are. Oh well, here's active, and here's who we're paying, and here's who we're keeping. So, as the numbers go slower and smaller and smaller, when you're competing with like a Netflix, you have to do something to bolster them, and I think we're going to see bundles. Much like cable did many years ago. So I think they'll combine with somebody else.
I think you both have a point. Brian, I think you're right that it's not about do I have more than Disney Plus, because Disney Plus is doing a whole different approach to the market than Peacock. What Peacock wants is, do I have enough to make this pay for itself? But Chris, I think you're right that the path that Peacock is on is not the path that it's been on. It launched without the Olympics. It launched with The Office. That's pretty much all it could talk about. And the Friends special and all of that. Now you're seeing during the Olympic coverage, they're pushing originals. None of them necessarily feel that compelling yet, but they're still early days. They may find their hit eventually. And they're going to add live sports. That's going to start being compelling when you start to have actual live sports that you can get through Peacock. And people are getting a little bit of taste of that with the Olympics, although it's very scattered on how to find it. There's a lot of work to be done on Peacock to shape it up and make it compete. But the fact that it's owned by Comcast and it has the universal connection and it's going to get the tier one or the TV one window, whatever that's called, the pay one window on all the universal films, like it looks like it will start coming together, but it is a little haphazard right now.
I will say that
sure.
Peacock, from its launch, and I think it did everything right. I think it got hit the hardest by the pandemic because it leveraged so much, or it bet so much on the Olympics, and then the Olympics.
And people don't know it's free.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. They really need to hammer the fact that it's free, because I don't know how many times I've talked to somebody and they're like, yeah, but I don't want to pay for another service. I'm like,
right.
You don't have to. You can get a lot of it for free.
It's just
like
ads. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing to add is that my wife works for Rotten Tomatoes, which is owned by NBC. And so my insurance is from NBC. So, it's going to be great. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location. Under surveillance.
Marvel's next Disney Plus series is What If, coming August 10th, but the next live action series from Marvel on Disney Plus will be Hawkeye, which just got a premiere date of Wednesday, November 24th. Of course, Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, with Haley Steinfeld as his protege, Kate Bishop.
Hawkeye feels like maybe the Avengers character that has the most leeway to take really big risks and do something crazy with, because he's so on the periphery in every single MCU movie. I hope they do crazy risks, but I don't suspect they will.
Yeah, there's an interesting kind of like backstory with the way Hawkeye was kind of like reinvented in the comics, and with Kate Bishop being introduced. I don't know how much they're going to lean into that for the TV show, but just kind of the perspective of a guy with a bow and arrow who's surrounded by guys with superpowers. It's always like a really interesting perspective, like, because he's the guy that he doesn't have superpowers, so he has to be really, really good with his bow and arrow, and he acknowledges that. And with his protege, Kate. I think it's Kate Bishop. I'm pretty sure.
When I was in 7th grade, I used to play. There was a RPG system called Marvel Superheroes. Imagine Dungeons and Dragons, but in the MCU. And when I looked at the character sheet for Hawkeye, they listed among his skills and talents was the fact that he was partially deaf, which is where he got his awesome eyesight from. And so, like, you're right. I mean, he's just a guy who's good with the bow and arrow.
Yeah. And if they concentrate on more like the street level type stories of, like, crime in the neighborhood, I think
to
it could be really
Daredevil.
compelling. Yeah, absolutely. I think it could be really interesting. The way Falcon and Winter Soldier was so huge and epic, the way, the fights went all over the world. If this is smaller and more contained, I think it could be really interesting and fun.
Yeah. And Disney doesn't have to worry about Jeremy Renner suing them over the back end because it's a TV show from the beginning.
No, yeah, there's no theatrical bonus on the
Yeah.
on the streaming show.
So it's a win for everybody. TV series follow-up to 1995's Waterworld is apparently in development at Universal Content Productions. Deadline says that friend of the show Dan Trachtenberg is attached to direct. The series would pick up 20 years after the events of the movie. It hasn't been sold to a platform, but Peacock seems to be the obvious choice since it's in the same building. Waterworld is best known as being the most expensive film ever made at the time of its release and a disappointment at the box office. It's less well known as premiering the same week I visited LA for the first time, and it's the same week a sinkhole opened in the construction of the Red Line subway. Also, Waterworld, one of the better stunt shows at Universal.
That's
theme
exactly
park.
what I was about
Yeah.
to say. Is that it's unfortunate that what we remember is the box office failure or disappointment of it. But meanwhile, it's like I have friends who use various tracks from the soundtrack in their stage shows because the music is exceptional to it. The stunt show is awesome. Like there's something to the world. And oh man, I know you shouldn't believe everything you read, but you have no idea how much I would love to see a Dan Trachtenberg directed series. That'd be amazing.
That would be cool if this ends up panning out. That would be crazy cool.
And it's one of those post-apocalyptic open worlds where you could literally do anything.
Except for Walk on Dry Land.
Yes, except for Walk on Dry Land. Except, well,
it's the only thing, which normally you'd think would be an unremarkable aspect to a show.
yeah. Well, spoiler at the end.
Fair enough. Oh, that's right. It's 20 years later. Actually, oh my God, you're right. Actually, yeah.
You could have a crossover with The Postman with Kevin Costner's movie.
That's what I want to know: is are they going to get a Costner? Going to get a Costner appearance somehow if they end up doing this. Amazon announced that its Lord of the Rings prequel series will arrive on Amazon Prime Friday, September 2nd, 2022. A little more than a year from now. Filming wrapped this week, so the next 13 months will be for post-production, if that tells you anything. Still no title, but Amazon did release a still photo of someone in white looking off towards a city with two white trees. Now, a lot of people are saying, I bet that's the gold tree Laurelin and the silver tree Telperion, aka the Trees of Light, which would be odd because those are from Tolkien's First Age, and the story is supposed to take place in the Second Age.
Chris, you're probably better qualified to chime in on this than I am. I personally have been cautious in my excitement for this because essentially, Amazon spent $150 million to buy basically a world story Bible and no actual story. And I don't know how afraid that this is just going to be filled with, let me put it this way. We have seen other fantasy worlds where television people told a story and not novelists.
Well, I've kind of fanboyed up on this, and I can't wait, and I don't care what they're doing. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and when I heard how much they spent just on the rights, I'm like, okay, well, that can't be the entire budget. So if they're going to spend that much on the rights, they're going to spend a ton more on the show. So I am, I'm going to give the show a lot of leeway. Even if it's mediocre, I'm probably going to be there for as many as they shoot. So but there is that cautious, like you were saying, it's like, you spend all this money and it's, it's an age in Tolkien that there aren't any of your recognizable characters are going to be in, unless we're going to have Gandalf time travel or whatever. But I think with the Game of Thrones, with the world building, I think there's enormous potential. So I hope it works out.
Yeah, my biggest concern on this whole project, especially because I've seen this still, is that they only have the rights to the appendix to the Lord of the Rings. And they're going to try to tell a first and second age story, maybe, based on that. And they don't have the rights to use the Silmarillion. If none of these words mean anything to you, just think of it as lore nerds are scared because they can't use the whole universe. And that could cause problems if they want to reference things that they don't have the rights to reference. Witness Hannibal and Clarice that can't refer to each other because they don't have the rights to the whole Hannibal verse.
Well, and here's the thing, like, and this is something you could put onto Amazon. If you're paying that much for rights for anything, you can't really expect stuff to be left out. I mean, like, look, we're giving you hundreds of millions of dollars. I want the Silmarillion. I mean, you
Well, the Tolkien estate won't sell it to him, though. That
Yeah.
apparently, right?
Well,
That's a nightmare.
we kind of have a natural experiment with Netflix and Miller World right now. You know, we only saw the I forget the name of it.
Jupiter Rising.
Already, yeah, exactly. They're already kind
Legacy.
of pulling back, taking their time on the rest of the Miller World stuff. So, I mean, yeah, they could leave some meat on the table there.
Well, that's actually a different. That was a really interesting deal Netflix did with Miller World. Is they not only bought the characters and the rights, they bought his entire company. So whatever he makes, including I think even like the publishing, like crazy, like we just want everything. So I think you really need like an all in with like a Lord of the Rings. Like it's not like with Game of Thrones. Well, we want the rights to everything but these 2 books. Like it's not going to work. It's. So I think though the world is big enough, and you're doing an age where it's kind of a blank slate. We'll see what happens. They might just start creating their own mythology inside that age. So we'll see.
Ooh, that's uncomfortable. Maybe Amazon will just buy the Tolkien estate. They'll just
it would probably be cheaper, to buy the estate at this point.
just buy the family. Netflix is pushing star-studded movies more and more. Just acquired the worldwide rights to another one, action thriller Fast and Loose, which stars Will Smith, will be directed by David Leitch. If you don't know him, Hobbs and Shaw, Deadpool 2, John Wick, a couple of good ones. Smith will play a man who wakes up in Tijuana with no memories, only to discover he's been leading a double life as a crime kingpin and undercover CIA agent. It's not a rom-com.
It's they need another mediocre streaming action film. So this sounds like it fits the bill.
I mean, look, on a long enough timeline, Will Smith has to have another hit, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just nothing but Netflix pitching softballs to Will Smith over and over and over again.
But on a long enough timeline, David has to direct a flop.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. A few other notes here. Netflix released the first still of Imelda Staunton as Queen Elizabeth in The Crown. Staunton, of course, taken over from Olivia Colman in season 5 to portray the latter years of the Queen. The resemblance to Dolores Umbridge is definitely there. Netflix released a trailer for the final season of La Casa de Papel, aka Money Heist. That'll return September 3rd. And Doctor Who will release its 13th season since the return, in the 21st century anyway, this autumn, and follow with 3 feature-length specials in 2022. After which showrunner Chris Chibnall and actor Jodie Whittaker will depart the series. So begins the slow drumbeat of speculation as to who will take over as the next Doctor Who.
Am I right in my number counting that technically, per the lore of Doctor Who, you have 13 lives, and after Jodie Foster,
they retconned that.
How did they fix that?
During the Capaldi thing, they found out that as a matter of fact, that was a voluntary limit. And now that there is no more Gallifrey, there's no one to enforce it. So, and in fact, there's been some, in the Whittaker years, some implication that maybe the Doctor had regenerated many times before the first Doctor fled from Gallifrey. So there's all kinds of lore going on there.
I would love to believe it's like, oh, Doctor, you misread the Nielsen dialogues, which clearly state you can have as many iterations as you want.
Yeah, so Torchwood's no longer enforcing that limit anymore. Is that?
Yeah, there's a little hand waviness going on there. I'm sure a Doctor Who fan could explain it properly to us. So please, cordkillers@gmail.com if you can. But they sort of soft lifted the limit. So who's going to be the next Doctor Who? Idris Elba?
Idris Elba would work because you remember he actually. He said that he, I don't know that he was technically offered, but he preemptively said, I wouldn't want to play James Bond. I'm too old for that character. He's not too old to play the Doctor, and he would be great.
Thousands of years old.
He already played the Doctor in a little Hollywood vehicle called The Dark Tower.
Sort of.
Is he too big to be a Doctor Who? Like, is he too big of a star?
Like too big of it? Like, could they not afford his rate?
Like he couldn't fit his
basically?
TARDIS? Is that what you're
he's
saying?
at that level where
He's
he
very
can do
tall, too.
whatever he finds interesting.
Because it is bigger on the inside than on the outside. He could
True.
fit.
Yeah. So he shouldn't have any problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk
But can
about
it
what
hold
we've
his
had.
ego?
Let's talk about what we've had our eyes on, stuff we've been watching. Start with you, Chris. What did you see lately?
I actually saw Blood Red Skies, which was on Netflix. This is the crazy German / English horror heist terrorist plane movie where there are terrorists, hijackers on a plane, but they accidentally hijacked the wrong plane because it has a vampire on it. So
Oops.
then it's then it's vampire versus hijacker, and it escalates or de-escalates from there. And I gotta say, you're at home for a pulpy, bloody, like an IFC midnight type of feel for it. It is what it is. I'll put it this way: it's as advertised. It's a vampire fighting on a plane to stop a hijacking. Now, occasionally the movie tries to get like a little more like art house horror, like Train to Busan, where you had that relationship with the father and the daughter. It never really gets there, so it just kind of like leans into the gore and the horror of it, but it works. It is what it is, and it's a fun time at the streaming movies night.
Excellent. Blood Red Skies. You've almost convinced me to watch it now. It sounds like fun. Yeah.
Not me. I'm already forced to watch season 3 of Hannibal. It's fine. but you know what I did watch, Tom, is me and my 13-year-old daughter. I'm taking her on a tour of things that I like, and I showed her Memento, Christopher Nolan's, one of his early films. Man, I had heard that people didn't care for Memento, and I couldn't understand why they wouldn't. But it turns out, like around your 20th or 21st time watching it, when you know the plot backwards and forwards, and the storytelling vehicle is not so novel anymore, turns out, there's not a lot there outside of the clever way they told the story.
Well, I have to say, I had a really nice experience with that film. Before it got released, I had a short film playing in the Slam Dance Film Festival, and Memento was one of like the big feature films that no one had seen yet. No one had heard of Christopher Nolan. And, to watch it in a big packed theater with a bunch of film festival fans, it was really cool. And then, like, you always feel like you're in the know. Then when the movie blows up, like, I saw that at the festival.
And it truly was. For anybody who wasn't there. And now we're old people talking about Woodstock. It's like you had to be there. Yeah. But it's like it truly was. I remember seeing it in the movie theater and being just blown away. Yep. And nowadays we have a bit more sophisticated, experienced audience out there. And there's not as much there as I had hoped for my daughter.
You have to watch it backwards. That's the key.
Yeah, I hate to say it's a product of its time because it's not that old, but it kind of is.
20 years, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I was definitely living in a world without Wi-Fi when I watched Memento.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. I've been just watching a lot of the Olympics, splitting my time between the NBC Sports app and AT&T TV. AT&T TV just to watch like the mainline coverage if I want it sort of curated by Mike Tirico, who I think does an excellent job as the host of Olympics coverage for NBC. And then the NBC Sports app, which again, they need better organization and interface. But once I figured out its quirks, it has everything. And so I can just be like, you know what? I want to see what's going on in table tennis. I want to watch some sailing. I'm gonna see what the kayakers are up to and the BMX bikes. And you could curate it yourself. So I've been kind of flipping back when I'm like, I don't want to have to think about it. Let me just put it on a broadcast or a cable channel and show me stuff. Versus like, you know what? I actually want to see the archery. Let me dive into the NBC Sports app and get that. And it's been fun.
Nice.
Well, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, we got a recommendation from, let's see here, Alex. Who writes, my recommendation for On the Lookout is Schmigadoon. Schmigadoon. This is a show on Apple TV Plus and is a send-up of 1940s musicals. It's executive produced by Lorna Michaels, and all the episodes are directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who you might know from Men in Black or the Addams Family movies. A couple, Melissa and Josh, go on a backpacking trip in an attempt to patch up their failing marriage, only to find themselves still arguing. And so they discover a magical town called Schmigadoon, which is trapped in a Golden Age-style musical, and they slowly realize they cannot leave until they find true love. I watched. I only got a chance to watch a little bit of this, but I thought this was cute and really well made. I think if you like musicals, like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or even the what is it, Zoe's incredible playlist of whatever.
Right.
I think you might like this, and for whatever reason, knowing that it was directed by the guy who did Men in Black just made me see the whole show through that lens. That kind of like, I don't know, old, not old timey, but just kind of big movies. You know, I think of that name and I think of like big movies.
Don't worry about it. Just go with it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Visually, Cecily Strong and Keegan-Michael Key, who I love both of them. I watched the first episode of this too. It's a piece of delicious cake. You know, it's super light. It's funny. And if you're not into like the musical world, you're probably not going to think it's that funny, but it's light and airy and
it's
fun.
the comedy equivalent of Blood Red Skies. It is.
Yeah, honestly, yes. If it's like, oh, instead of vampires and bloody gore, I would just like a musical. Yeah, it's
right. And it's fun. It's, you know, it's light, like you said, and it's just it puts a smile on your face.
Yeah. So thank you to Alex for that. Schmigadoon is streaming now on Apple TV Plus, which you can find on all sorts of devices, not just Apple products. 4 of their 6 episodes in, I don't know if this is a seasonal thing or a miniseries, but 4 of the 6 episodes are out right now as we record this. If you've got something we should be on the lookout for, email it to us, please. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you.
Well, folks, the way we do the show is on a computer. I don't know if a lot of you realize that, but that's how we get it to you. And Brian, how do we get those computers?
Well, the way we do it now is on computers. It used to be you and I would meet together in a park and just perform it like a musical, like Schmigadoon
style.
Right, yeah. But now we get to edit them and publish them and run an entire business on them, thanks to our friends over at Doghouse Systems. If you head on over to doghousesystems.com/rogue, ROGUE, you can support them and thank them for supporting us.
And real quickly, I have a new audiobook out called Project Vera. It's about a young analyst named Vera who gets swept up into an ancient society that thinks they run the world, and they want to kill her brother. If you want to get the secret confidential files that you are absolutely not supposed to be aware of, go to tomsnewbook.com and you can get Project Vera. It's a great cast. Serving Worlds produced this for me, and I really love what they did with it. So go check it out. You can get a free retail sample if you just want to listen to the very beginning of it. That's tomsnewbook.com. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines!
Oh, it's over. AT&T has completed the spinoff of DirectTV. DirectTV, that was bought by AT&T for a lot of money, has now been spun off for less money. AT&T will own 70% of it still, but doesn't have to count any of its debts on the AT&T balance sheet because it's a different company. 30% is going to be owned by a private equity firm called TPG, and the new company will be called simply DirectTV. Later this month, AT&T TV streaming offerings will become DirectTV Stream. They're not going back to DirectTV Now for whatever reason. And as of June 30th, DirectTV, AT&T TV, and AT&T Uverse had 15.4 million customers combined. So that's what this new DirectTV will have to work with. And customers are assured they won't have to do anything to continue their service. It will keep going. It'll just change its name.
I have absolutely nothing to say about this. Chris?
It sounds like some weird communication Ponzi scheme to me. I don't know.
Basically, it's AT&T saying, good luck. Maybe you'll make it work. But if it fails, we don't want the debt on our balance sheet. So
Right. Yeah.
They say, maybe put more T's in all the names. We tried adding AT&T to DirectTV, and there wasn't enough T. 3 years ago, Dish and Warner got into a spat over HBO, and HBO hasn't been available on either Dish or Sling TV since. Well, they finally worked it out, partly. Dish TV customers will be able to get HBO and Cinemax now, but they'll have to sign up for HBO Max to get HBO. However, the deal does not cover Sling TV yet. This is somewhat unsurprising in that, like, basically new territory was unlocked and HBO said, here's what it's going to cost for us to come to your party, right?
Yeah. And in 2018, this was a bigger story than it is in 2021.
Yeah.
I remember when we first covered this, like, ooh, Dish and HBO fighting it out. Now it's like, oh, Dish got HBO back. Too little, too late. Because they didn't get it back for Sling. That's the part that puzzles me. I don't know. Maybe Dish will buy DirectTV, and they can go down together.
Maybe we
CBS
can.
seems
There's a
pleased
T
with
in your
Alex
name,
Kurtzman.
Tom.
Yeah, maybe I'll buy them once they get cheap enough. CBS seems pleased with Alex Kurtzman's stewardship of the Star Trek franchise. CBS Studios signed a deal with Kurtzman to continue to run Star Trek for the next 6 years. Kurtzman oversees all of the Star Trek shows on Paramount Plus and elsewhere, as well as The Man Who Fell to Earth, a remake they're doing for Showtime, and a Stephen King short story adaptation. So if you like what Kurtzman's been doing, then you'll be happy to know he's still going to stay in charge.
Chris, do you like what Kurtzman's been doing?
Well, I don't have CBS All Access or Paramount or whatever they're calling it now, so that might answer your question. I will get it back when Picard returns. That's no.
You like Picard?
That's my short
what
answer. Is I
gotcha.
felt like again we talk about missed opportunities. I think there was so much going on in the Star Trek universe that could have been rebooted or redone, and I felt like as I was watching, like I think the first season of Discovery was so far away from what Star Trek wanted to be. They slowly tried to pull back, like as for season 2, but I was like, this still isn't the Star Trek that I know and love. Granted, I grew up on the other shows, but I am enjoying Picard, and I am excited about the one with Spock and Pike. So I think maybe that might get closer to what I enjoy as Star Trek. But I feel like adding things like graphic gore and like torture porn, and I'm like, no, that's not the Star Trek.
What about the Kung Fu classic, right?
Well, and I think this argues in favor of Kurtzman, because Brian Fuller was in charge of that first season of Discovery, and Kurtzman took about 2 years to extricate Discovery from that. And Kurtzman's the one who brought you Picard, and Lower Decks and all of those. So maybe this.
Well,
this
to
is
be
a good
fair,
thing.
there was a new showrunner every 2 weeks over there, so I don't.
Oh yeah, on that first year of Discovery, I know. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
So I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see it find its footing, but I don't need to watch every single Star Trek show they make. They're making so many, I may be able to just kind of pick and choose. Like I like this one, I'm going to not watch this one. So
well, I'll tell you what, Chris, if you're ready for some football, but you do have Hulu Live TV, you don't have to despair. The NFL Network is coming to Hulu Live TV for the 2021 season as part of the base $65 a month plan. Hulu is going to offer a sports add-on plan for $10 a month that will include NFL Red Zone along with a few other sporting channels. Side note, the guy who wrote this song, Are You Ready for Some Football, is Hank Williams Jr., who will be playing across the street from my house this month.
Oh, will you be able to hear it
yes,
just stepping out on your front porch?
Yeah. We're one of those neighborhoods where it's like everybody built a neighborhood around a music venue, and then we're all shocked, I say, that loud music is being played on Friday nights.
Too many rowdy friends. Why don't you settle down?
This seems like a big get for Hulu to offer it for
it's an
free.
essential get, right? You need to have NFL.
It's huge, yeah.
One of the reasons that I switched from Hulu Live to AT&T TV was entirely sports. But I would have switched to YouTube TV if it hadn't been AT&T, because Hulu didn't have both the NHL and the MLB networks. Now, I don't care as much about the NFL network, but there are those who do. And this will be something where they can now consider Hulu where they wouldn't have before. So yeah, it's a huge get for them. The Google TV app on Android in the US, which was formerly called Play Movie and TV, it's still called Play Movies and TV outside of the US, but anyway, it's called Google TV in the US now, has gotten a new redesign and added programming from Discovery Plus and Viki. In other words, you can access the shows from those services in a single watch list and in the recommendations alongside other integrated services. The new design features widescreen thumbnails with Rotten Tomatoes scores below, and just looks a little nicer.
And the second generation Fire TV Cube now supports two-way Zoom calls with a connected webcam. Users will need a micro USB to USB adapter to add a camera, and calls can be joined through a Fire TV voice assistant. This feels like a very uniquely this moment story. Like if you told this might have been 5 years ago the most surprising story that would have come across. But in the world of the pandemic, it's utterly pedestrian. It's insane.
Well, because Zoom's trying to get on all the smart displays, which makes sense.
Right.
So getting on the Fire TV Cube is an interesting move, right? To be like, oh, even if you don't have a camera built in, let's make it easy. And Amazon likes it because Amazon's not competing with Zoom in any material way. So they can actually say like, yeah, another reason to buy the Fire TV Cube because you can talk to folks on Zoom with it.
And I think the part that impresses me the most is that it's such a practical move in a world where quite literally we're changing school districts for my youngest because one school district is not offering remote learning and the other one does. Then it's like, oh, that'll be very convenient. I could just plug in this thing and she can go to school.
Let's get to the dispatches from the front. Chris from Atlanta says, hey, fellas, I wanted to get this in before the Olympics were over. I've been watching plenty of coverage, and it's all pretty good. But actually, my favorite coverage that I've been watching is a show called Tokyo Gold, hosted by Rich Eisen, who should be familiar to many people. And I believe it's only available on Peacock. While you do not get the full tape of any event, what you do get is Rich reviewing the winning moments from a multitude of competitions, along with some interview moments, reaction shots from family and friends around the world, and of course, good graphics, in my opinion. I'm a little biased because I'm already a fan of Rich Eisen's banter style, but I would encourage everyone to give this one a shot if you have access to Peacock. If you manage to catch a moment of Rich's ridiculously high energy for archery, then you'll know it's been worth it.
We also got a message that says, hi, Tom, Brian, and Bryce. My husband is a rabid Red Sox fan. We live in upstate New York. There's quite a lot of Red Sox fans living here, but the powers that be consider us to be in Yankees country. That means that the stores sell Yankees merch sometimes, and Yankee games are blocked out even on the MLB app. We were forced earlier this week to upgrade our cable to a plan that included the Yes Network so that we could see the Yankees Red Sox games, even though we were paying $25 a month for the MLB app. My husband says if we lived in Massachusetts, the games would be on local TV if they were blocked out on MLB. I think this is I think this blacking out is evil and should be outlawed. Thank you for a great show, Belissa. Thank you, Belissa.
Belissa's not alone. Obviously, you need to move to Massachusetts. I think that's that's
Texas.
what Major League Baseball is telling you. So just move to Massachusetts, bill them for the move, and because in some ways the blackout rules work in your favor if they consider you in Yankee country. That means you're not blacked out on MLB, but then it means when they play the Yankees, now you are blacked out because you're in Yankees country. I really can't wait for these blackout rules to go away. Right now in baseball anyway, the only reason they have them is that the local coverage doesn't want people not to subscribe to cable and where they get their fee because they can get it on the MLB app. But eventually that fee's not going to be worth it. And then it'll be more worth it to actually get a little bit of money from MLB for the MLB app. But I don't know how many years it's going to be before that all shakes out.
Right.
Well, thank you, Chris Mancini, for being with us. You've got some cool stuff going on. Let folks know what you got in store over there.
Absolutely. I'm in the middle of actually just launched another Kickstarter for Rise of the Kung Fu Dragon Master graphic novel. That is volume 2. And you can check that out on Kickstarter. Or you can just go to my website, whitecatentertainment.com, and click through over to there. It's a love letter to the 80s action and comedy and buddy movies that I actually grew up with. So it's kind of like a Big Trouble in Little China, Goonies, Jackie Chan, all those things kind of combined in my head. And then this is what came out. So it's about Rick, a small-time crook in Los Angeles, who accidentally gets the power of the dragon and gets thrust into a mystical battle between good and evil, been fought through the days of ancient China, and he is ill-equipped to deal with any of it. So, and that's that'll go until September 5th, and the goal is about 8,000. But we're off to a really good start. We're about a quarter funded just in one day. So
Holy cow!
It's going well.
That's great. That's great. And I know a bunch of folks in the audience backed Rise of the Kung Fu Dragon Master the first time around. So there's no reason you shouldn't get in on the action the second time around. And if you're unfamiliar, go pick it up, blaze through it. You'll want to get volume 2. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. And if you go to the Kickstarter campaign, if you want to get them both at once, or you want to get one as an add-on, you could get it there too, or you could get it in the whitecatentertainment.com store. So but yeah, that, and the other thing I've got going is I started a new podcast because everything was going crazy last year. I tried to create a hybrid comedy, science, adventure, relaxation podcast. So it's called The Quiet Journeys of Professor Atwood. And it's me going on different journeys, and it has music and sound design to actually make things turn the temperature down a little bit. So it's something you could kind of sit, relax, chill, listen to the music, the sound effects, and my narration as I travel all over the world and beyond. And it's something that's really kind of fun, and I've really been enjoying doing, but also I hope it helps people as well.
That's awesome.
Good stuff, folks. Don't forget, our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Talk to you again next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful names.
I'm sorry, I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money.
And love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.